I want to welcome, allow him to introduce himself, Dwayne, all the way from wonderful Goochland County. Dwayne, excuse me. So I just want to welcome him, give him an opportunity to just say a word if he cares in terms of how he's serving in Goochland and therefore.
Well, thank you. Good morning. Again, Dwayne Cosby with Goochland County. I'm a new member of the Planning Commission. Look forward to serving Goochland County well, and also a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals as well.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us this morning. Okay, next item, certification of a physical quorum, Ms. Connie.
Yes, sir. Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Here.
Charles City County, Mr. Atkins.
Present.
Chesterfield County, Chair Holland.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Lyle.
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Davis.
Present.
Henrico County, Mr. Rokish. New Kent County, Mr. Moyer.
Here.
Powhatan County, Mr. Kinney. And City of Richmond, Dr. Newbill.
Here.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And consistent with that, Dr. Newbill has requested to participate remotely. As we just heard her voice, we can hear her, and certainly we have seen her on there, online. The voice, it's a policy for remote participation for members, and the voice of those remotely participating can be heard, and she can be heard, and she can be seen. Dr. Newbill, it's good to see you. Can be heard by all persons at the primary or central meeting location with a voice vote.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor, sign of aye. Ayes have it, that is approved. Thank you, Dr. Newbill, for participating. I was looking for you just over there for a moment, but now I see you online. Thank you, Dr. Newbill. All right, next item is, we have consideration of amendments to the meeting agenda. Are there any items to be considered for the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda stands as approved, as presented, I should say. Item 3, approval of March 7th, 2024 meeting minutes, page 3. Would you carefully review and or render a motion, if you would, please?
Move for adoption. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, sign of aye. Ayes have it for approval, nay, and abstentions, there are none. So the minutes are approved. Item 4, the secretary's report, Mr. Bush.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's only really one item that I wanted to cover under the Secretary's report this morning, and that is staff in coordination with the chair are planning to move the meeting date for the next meeting from the 2nd to the 9th, so a week later. There's a significant conflict for a lot of members, and we're not sure we would have a quorum otherwise, and it's an important meeting because we will be reviewing the budget and work program for the next fiscal year. So the plan right now is to move it to the following Thursday, which is the 9th, which would be the normal commission meeting. So if you're on the commission, you'd already have been here as well. So that's the main update on the Secretary's report. Yes?
May I ask what the conflict is, just out of curiosity?
And Janice, were you able to find that?
The conflict?
Yes.
The Chamber RVA intercity visit is scheduled for that week. And we looked at the registrations for those that are attending, and it looked like there were quite a few of the TPO policy board members that would actually be away and out of town. Given the importance, as Mr. Bushing said, of that meeting and the subject matter, we felt like it was appropriate to recommend moving the meeting a week so we could assure a quorum.
Yes, makes sense. Thank you.
All right.
Just for the information, that is day night.
May 9th, yes.
I'm learning how to use a phone calendar. So
Great. All right, thank you, Mr. Bushing. Now, item 5, review of selected RRTPO agenda topics.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I wanted to spend more time on today's meeting going through this section of our agenda since we do have a budget amendment for fiscal year 24 proposed. So I wanted to walk through that in a little bit more detail and just also pull up the agenda so we can briefly touch on all the items that we have. So the first action item that we're requesting today is endorsement of the Human Services Grant Program. So this is the FTA 5310 program. These are projects which support mobility for older adults and people with disabilities, parent transit services. And this is generally, in most years, this would just be a consent agenda item. But since we're walking through that planning cycle process, we're putting this on as an action item, individually listed for your review. The next item on the agenda today is a TIP amendment for the I-64 GAP Segment B. So this is the second of the three sections of the GAP. This is the eastern end of New Kent. And this is being requested due to an increase in the total cost estimate. So the original estimate was around 242 million and it's around 270 million now. And so this is an update that's required to reflect that change in the cost and the planned funding that goes with it. There's no request for any funding from the MPO. It's already been resolved, but it just has to be reflected in the TIP. And then the third item is the one that I wanted to spend a little bit more time on. This is the Unified Planning Work Program amendment that we are proposing. So the Unified Planning Work Program is basically our budget and work plan for the year. It lays out all the tasks, what we're expecting to achieve, and then the funding behind it, which is really two federal programs. There's on the transit side, the 5303 program from FTA, and then on the highway side, we have the PL funding, which flows through federal highways and through VDOT. So just wanted to share the screen, and this is also in your agenda packet. But the changes that we're making right now are really in response. Plan RVA's conducted a mid-year review of our budget, looking at where we were through February, I think was our stopping point. But at that point, based on all the staffing changes and transitions that we've seen and the fact that we weren't fully staffed up on the Plan RVA side as a whole, we realized that there was a need to shift some time to make sure that we're delivering the priority work projects that the agency has identified and also that our locality partners are requesting. So this table summarizes the large tasks. Basically, you can see we're moving funding out of the short-range planning program and we're moving it to the long-range planning program and the program support administration. The shift on 7200 is a little bit more complicated. It shows we're moving money out, but that is where we have our contingency line item. And so any of the funding that comes out of contingency negatively impacts that line item. But in essence, I go a little bit more into detail on the tasks for executive committee. Basically, we're adding additional time for the program management and our budget management side of the agency. And it's really to support the work that's been needed with Chet's departure from the MPO. There have been several people stepping in to help fill pieces of that. And as we've talked about before, we were looking for someone to be the MPO administrator for a while. So there's been a lot of transition on this side. So this is really reflecting the extra work that's been needed to keep the administration moving. It also reflects a lot of my time has moved out of the short range planning into the administrative side of the agency. Under long range planning, we're actually moving to have more funding for the LRTP. So as we talked about at the forum, if everyone was able to attend, we are kicking off our 2050 long range transportation plan. So this is moving more time into that task so that we're able to do more of the scoping, more of the initial data work, really start ramping that effort up in advance of the July 1 for next fiscal year. The three tasks below it, scenario planning, travel demand model, and transit, are very minor adjustments, basically moving more of that time to long range planning. And then under active transportation and system resiliency, we see larger shifts, and this is still in the long range planning bucket. But basically those are, the active transportation program also supports the CVTA. So more of our time is focusing on the CVTA effort. It's the same projects. We're working to advance the Fall Line Trail, but we're working through the CVTA's work groups rather than through the MPO's work groups to do the same project. And then system resilience is actually a really cool project. This is really where the overlap of our environmental planning and our transportation planning come together. And so this is where we plan for environmental linkages. So basically making sure when we're planning for transportation, we're thinking about the environmental impacts, and so that we can plan around them, which helps to speed up NEPA and those things down the road. If you're planning for it up front, you don't have to worry about it on the back end and slow the project down. So this supports some really great projects. We have critical infrastructure, so identifying the most critical pieces of the transportation and other infrastructure throughout the region. Flood risk analysis, we've actually been able to work with NASA on a flood model for the region, which is really cool. And then just general green infrastructure planning, looking for those environmental linkages. So that work is ongoing, and this is something we're trying to gear up again for the long-range plan, because we have to put the environmental planning considerations in before we start picking projects for the next 20 years. The last section of the budget is the short-range planning. So this is the TIP. This is our Transportation Improvement Program, our actual funding, where we allocate our regional funds to projects. And then our performance-based planning and programming, which is setting safety targets and performance indicators. So we're still maintaining the budget on the performance indicators and that side of the program. The TIP side is where we pulled a lot of the time off. And again, that's reflective of the fact that a lot of my time used to be in this program. This is where I was primarily scheduled before. And we've actually already completed the work for this year. So we've completed, the new TIP has been approved. We're just processing monthly amendments. The funding decisions were all finalized last month at this board meeting. So we've really completed the bulk of the work for the financial programming side of the house. So we don't need the funding still on that side. The last piece on here is rail and freight. And I know Mr. Hodges is interested in this one. With this program, we've had the budget and we didn't actually have a freight planner on board, but I'm happy to announce that we were able to fully staff up and we have a freight planner as of last month. So this is a focus area that we're going to be able to dive more deeply into with the upcoming fiscal year. So for the balance of this year, which is really just the last quarter, he'll be getting familiar with the region, our existing freight planning and our freight partners, such as the port. And then really for next year, in the next budget and work plan, we have several tasks and actual deliverables ready, including rail crossing analysis and freight corridors, making profiles of our freight corridors. So we actually have a little bit more in terms of actually moving into that freight space, geared up for next year. And I just want to say the next year's budget is at the Technical Advisory Committee right now. So this will be coming to you next month, which is the whole reason we're moving the meeting. So this is kind of going hand in hand. These adjustments are then being reflected in next year's work plan to make sure we're still covering the tasks that we were intending to cover for this year. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to give a little bit more detail on what we've been doing and where we were on these.
Good. Questions, comments? Yes.
I defer to.
Well, each of you. Yes, each of you.
Miles and I have been having a conversation. We're all going through budget discussions, and one of the things that helps, I think, is to see work status reports, which is what we've done to date, if we're taking money away, and what we expected to do when we adopted the budget, and where we are. Miles has, Mr. Bushing has addressed my concerns, as he indicated, but I'm not sure when we get a quarterly report.
Yes, sir. So our quarterly report will be in April. So as we close out this quarter of the fiscal year and then reconcile all the financials, then for April, we'll have the next quarterly update. So we're trying to give you the best information to make sure that it's all up to date and consistent with what's being reported to VDOT and, I'm sorry, yes.
I know, I was going to say.
I'm sorry, in May,
In May.
yes.
May.
Yes, I'm sorry about
It'll
that,
be
yes.
as of April in May.
Correct,
Got
so
it.
the quarter just ended at the end of March, so we have to wrap up the actual financials on that side. But it'll be at the next board meeting, we'll have the quarterly progress report for you and what's been achieved with the budget and where we are to date.
And just a further comment, that I think it is helpful to have, what the current budget is and what the proposed budget. And then that change, it really wasn't in this, but that's very helpful to have, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good point. Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Mr. Lyles. Yes, sir.
If I can, I'm gonna play the new guy card. Could you go back one slide maybe? And there was some reference to a heat island, which I do not know what a heat island is.
Sure.
And also wanted to know what a PEL is.
Sure. So heat island is basically when you have a lot of concrete, essentially. So a lot of development in an area, it raises the temperature compared to the natural landscape. So this was really looking at those impacts and how that impacts people being able to commute with active transportation or being able to sit at a bus stop. So it's that link between where we build up things, are we actually making it comfortable for people to still be able to commute? That's kind of how that works into transportation. PEL is planning and environmental linkages, so that is a federal highways language. But basically what that is trying to look at the environmental factors on the front end and incorporating them into the planning process. So then when you actually get to project development, it's not as much of an obstacle. Ideally, it also leads to a streamlined process that's coordinated with EPA, federal highways, and your state DOT, so it's all streamlined. So that's really the intent of that. And the second part, ecological, is really just an implementation of the PEL, the planning and environmental linkages.
Well, Mr. Hodges has advised that I need to get the 47-page acronym book, and I'm not sure where it is, if it's in the lending library, but I'd like to get my hands on it if I can.
Yes, sir, we'll make sure we get that too.
Very good, thank you. Great for that question. Any other questions or comments regarding the topics? Very good, very good. All right, given that, let's move to item 6, where it was mentioned earlier regarding moving our meeting from May 2nd to May 9th. And so, is everyone in order, in agreement with that? Is that in order of everyone? We don't need a motion to do that, do we? Just decree it, I think. We don't need a motion to move the meeting. Should we probably have a motion to move it?
It would be better, just on the side of caution, to be able to have the record reflect that.
I think that's a wise idea. Thank you for saying that, and it comes to me. It has been mentioned that it's advantageous and prudent to move the meeting from May 2nd to May 9th. Let's entertain a motion to accommodate that change.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, appreciate it. So it's been moved and properly second. Any additional discussion or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, sign of aye. Ayes have it, those opposed? The ayes have it, that is approved, so the meeting has been moved to May 9th as recommended. Yes, sir, Mr. Atkins.
What's the timing between, the two May 9th meetings?
8:30 for executive committee and 9:30 for the full policy board. The commission, which is probably already on your calendar, those meetings will be canceled.
Okay.
So we're basically replacing the commission meetings with the TPO meetings.
What about, Plan RVA?
Right, we're gonna cancel the Plan RBA meetings.
Okay. Thank you for the language.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you for the interpretation.
Yeah,
So that's
TPO's gonna happen and the Plan RBA meetings will not.
Thank you.
All right, sir, appreciate the clarity, Mr. Atkins, it's always nice. Thank you. Any other comments and or questions? All right. Here, none. Is there any additional items or business to come before this body? Before adjournment? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn the executive committee meeting until our regular meeting.
So moved.
It's been moved,
Second.
properly second. All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. We are herewith adjourned until our next meeting.